Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this show runs through the ages. Sinners and saints, goblins and haints, but beware as they say we're contagious. Sick with the truth, we uncover the lies. We beat on the drums as they march side by side. Wake up, my dear friends, and smell that fresh roast. Last night shall no longer exist. You're here by yourself, but you're never alone, as we spin stories you'll hear in the mist. Reptilians and greys, we folk who stay hidden. Mysterious booms, archaeology forbidden. Stay away from the village, keep off of the moors. There's a lady in white and bloodstains on the floor. So sit back and relax, take the load off your feet, as we're here to amaze, entertain, and complete. You see, my name is John, and Stacey's here too, and my, do we have something in store for you. Welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow, with your host, authors of Till Death and Beyond, John and Stacey Edwards of ParanormalSideshow.com. Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow. I'm your host, John Edwards, and joined as always by my lovely wife, Stacey.
Hello.
And we are not sick.
We are not.
I mean, we're sick in the head, but, you know, that's what the doctor says.
Right.
But we're not sick.
Right.
We're like medicine sick. Well, not that kind of medicine, but, you know, like, woohoo kind of medicine. Anyway, Stacey, not me. I'm just trying to be supportive husband here and act like it's me as too.
Right, honey.
Oh, yeah. Pat me. Go ahead, pat me. Let me tell you, on a serious note, and maybe the last one you get through the whole show, on a serious note, a lot of people are affected right now with COVID-19. And we understand this. So we're affected by it too. In some ways with Bruce Wayne job, life, family members, things like that. And we know a lot of you, or most of you are as well, anywhere around the world. It's a bad, horrible thing that we're all only going to live through one time, but we're going to get through it, and we're going to get through it together. We're going to get through it with a lot of weirdness, strangeness, mysteries, you know, the kind of stuff that makes you happy. Mm-hmm. Because that's what makes us happy, and it makes us the happiest to bring it to you. So I just want to say once again, but here at the first of the show, that our hearts are with you, our thoughts are with you. And if anyone is having just the most horrific time ever, we're absolutely trying to bring you as much content as we can. Mm-hmm. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, email, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to, you know, converse and hear your weird stories and all that good stuff. If it takes us a day or so to get back to you, that's because we have a whole heap and helping mess of stuff going on too with all this mess and trying to fight for toilet paper and you know, all the things you have to do during this, because it's something that we've never faced before and will never face again, knock on wood, but it is a doozy. So with all that said, unfortunately, I am considered bona fide.
Are you bona fide?
I am bona fide.
Are you a suitor? I
am a suitor. He's a suitor. I am considered essential. So with all those essential people out there, because, you know, Bruce Wayne's essential, mm-hmm. I have to run Wayne Enterprises. That's and right. If it wasn't like that, trust me, I would be so quarantined right now because I worry about it every single day. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of us out there, and you're either damned if you do or damned if you don't, right?
Right.
Sitting at home with no job is not good. Going to work with a bunch of sick people sneezing all over you, that's probably not that good either.
No.
So, anyway, we're almost through it, and you know, I'm having to wonder though if I've not been seeing signs of the apocalypse. It's really got me thinking earlier today. I was thinking, you know, Danzig was releasing a new album.
Oh, wow.
And he's singing all Elvis covers.
Danzig doing Elvis?
The name of the album is Danzig Sings Elvis.
Wow. Well, that's an appropriate title.
Yeah. So, I
bet Danzig does some really good Elvis.
I bet he does.
I bet he really does.
I bet he does. But you don't expect the demon from hell to be singing Love Me Tender.
Right.
So, that was one of my signs of the apocalypse. And, you know, there was another one that was kind of a little sign of the apocalypse. You know, it happened a week or so ago with Tom Brady leaving New England for Tampa Bay.
That's right.
I mean, you know, in the whole book of these are signs of the apocalypse.
Right.
I believe Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay is somewhere in the top 5.
I think it might be.
I mean, it's a little bit weird, right?
It is. It is.
And, you know, to add to all that, if all those weren't weird enough, so I watched WrestleMania with the kids, and they make it a 2-night event. There's no fans.
Right.
Because of obvious reasons. So they do as much as they can to it, but they have the weirdest segments. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Right.
But it's weird watching this stuff with no fans. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What is sports talk radio doing right now? I mean,
I have no idea.
I mean, what are they talking about? I kind of want to listen tomorrow.
Yeah, just to see.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe they're rehashing old sporting events.
it's just, you know, trivia. I mean, there's literally, from the time I go to work to the time I get home, there is sports talk on the entire time.
Right.
On several channels. You've got ESPN radio. You've got all these channels that are just dedicated to sports talk.
Right.
And they'll even break it down, like the MLB channel and the NFL channel and all this crap, right? But then you have the same thing on TV. And I just don't understand right now. I bet those guys are really, really clamoring.
Well, at least the NFL channel could talk about the draft or something. Because, you know, it's not time for the NFL.
I'm telling you, the only thing right now that makes any sense in this world is paranormal, UFOs, cryptozoology. It's the only thing that makes any sense. Like, we knew long ago.
Right.
Someday, people, this is going to matter.
Right.
So it's the only thing that matters. Everybody's locked down right now. They need to escape from the day-to-day horrible, horrible things going on. You're not going to get that escape when you listen to sports talk, because it's going to be like, well, Jimmy, what do you think about that scenario if it possibly happens?
If we could have sports.
Right,
now.
right. I mean, why don't we do a fake mock fantasy draft?
So just a bunch of sports announcers playing video games of sports and then announcing to them.
I'm telling you, it's just a weird time, and you know, there's some fun to it. But I mean, the bad thing's going to be, you know, there's no movies, and I hope that makes people realize that they don't need them quite as bad, you know, to spend that much money. But then there's nothing being shot, because you can't have that many people together.
Right.
So there's no TV shows being shot. There's no movies being shot. I mean, it's really a weird situation, because even when the all clear is thrown out there, you're going to have a lot of ketchup.
Right.
You know, and a lot of mustard. It's going to be pretty crazy. I don't know.
It's weird because a lot of celebrities and things are transitioning to just doing things online.
Yeah.
And that's just weird.
Yeah. Oh, they're trying, man. The poor people, they are trying. I mean, you got to give it to them. You know, all of a sudden, the golden goose has flown the coop, and it's like, what do we do? It's like, what do we do anyway? Like, what's our worth? Well, actually, they just film you, and you don't really do anything. You
have to be in the film to stay relevant.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, I'm not even talking about movies. I'm just talking about reality stars, right?
Right.
So some people literally just get filmed going around shopping. You can't shop.
Right.
So they're going to film the quarantine. It's like, tonight on Housewives of House City, Lulu, quarantine, day 14.
She's just sitting on the couch.
Every week's another day. You know, and I worry about some of the shows I love, like Deadliest Catch and you know, things like that. Thank God that was recorded up until January, so they should have those coming out. That'll be cool.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think the guys will be going and digging on Oak Island as soon as summer breaks.
You never know.
You don't know. Of course, we do need a 7th person to die so we can find
so we can find
the treasure. At this point, I've almost thought
we're like rooting for people.
Well,
now.
yeah, no, I'm not. I was sad a few weeks ago, and I have to tell you, I was like, well, I need my death to mean something. I'm at least,
how far of a trip is it to Oak Island?
I might as well contact, you know, Rick and just be like, hey, if you take care of my family, I might fall down that hole for you.
Put a little plaque up there for me. It's fine.
I want to go out right, though. I want them to give me a stick of dynamite and a flashlight and just drop me down the hole. You know? It's just like, I'll take my chances. I'm going to blow the dynamite, see what I find. I'll cover my face, that kind of stuff. But hey, there's a lot of weird world mysteries, and we enjoy that kind of stuff. When I was talking about content, man, we got some content planned for you guys.
I do.
We're going to be doing quite a bit of stuff.
Had a huge planning session.
Yes, we did. It was the biggest planning session ever. Our planning sessions are the hugest. They are the best and the biggest. Huge. With a Y. Just huge. Huge. But in that planning session, we talked about a little bit of video stuff. We talked about a little bit more content for the Patreon. So I will tell you this. I can't tell you everything, but not this week. I can tell you next week. We're doing all the changes this week, but there will be changes to the Patreon levels. And there will be, new features, new bonus content. We're trying to make it more for you, more value, more extras, an extra show or two, things that we do, reach out things that we do. It's a lot of fun. And other than that, we'll be adding some new merch to the store, some new shirts coming up. And we've got a lot of stuff planned. I'm most excited about a YouTube thing we have planned. So I'm not going to give any details on that. Just saying there's some YouTube content upcoming.
Yes. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube yet, definitely go subscribe to the YouTube and do the clicking the bell thing so you can be notified when we start adding some cool stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, that's youtube.com and just search Paranormal Sideshow or / Paranormal Sideshow. Okay, there you go. / Paranormal Sideshow. Don't type slash. All right. So this week, I'm sorry to tell you, Stace, there's going to be no list.
There's no list.
There's no list.
Oh, okay.
Instead, I have decided to keep with everything weird that's been going on. I wanted to talk about a pretty strange story that I came across this past week. And oddly enough, I had never heard of this. And I take pride in the fact that I know pretty much all the weird stuff in this area.
Right.
In our immediate area or our greater area, really in the region, we know all your brown mountain lights and all your wood boogers and all this stuff, right? So very rarely is there something, especially down my alley of things that I'm interested in, such as what came before. We talk about that all the time. Archaeology, what was here, we're pretty sure, we're positive. There was a greater intelligence that was here. The people went through a cataclysm, kind of started over, but we don't know the whole story. That's the best way to put it, is there's a lot of mysteries out there. And for whatever reason, it seems that some people really want to keep it that way. They don't want us to know what our actual history is. And you can call it a conspiracy. That's fine. That's your prerogative. If you want to believe everything that was in the history books, and that's fine. I get that. I understand that. That's safe. But in the last few years especially, there's been an overwhelming amount of information come out. Not come out on the nightly news, but it's come out in books. It's come out in magazine articles. It's come out in very reputable places by very reputable people, be it doctors, be it archaeologists that kind of go rogue. And the only reason they don't go rogue,
right?
They're pushed into everybody saying they're rogue.
Right.
Because they don't buy into the dogma that is presented by the universities. And there's also big places, I'm careful here, but there's organizations that seem to really want to keep it a certain way. And I'll just say the Smithsonian, that's one of them. It's
a big one.
It's a big one. And it's just government agencies, for whatever reason. Think about the UFO, right? A lot of you UFO fans, think about the way they've always covered that up. And then it's come out. We know this. We see the Freedom of Information Act documents saying, well, let's just say this, or let's make them feel stupid, or make it look dumb, or whatever. Same thing with the ancient Earth. Okay, so very interesting stuff. This past week, Stacey and I were combing through videos and articles and things as we do, and came across a very strange video that was about something that happened in Tennessee, and not just in Tennessee, but Tennessee in my region. Morristown, Tennessee, which is about an hour from me. And, you know, it's somewhere I go quite often, to be honest with you. I actually wrestle there quite often. And it was about Tennessee pygmies. That was their word, not mine. That is from the 1800s, from newspaper articles, what have you. So Stacey and I went full bore on this, newspapers.com. I'll just give you a source there. You can put keywords in. It's going to cost you some money.
Right.
But you go in there and you can actually find legitimate newspapers and find your articles. And it's great for researchers like us, because we can go find from the horse's mouth, right? We've told you before, what's the best place in the world? Local newspapers, local TV, local radio, things like that to get the real news, especially when you do things like this. So that can also have an asterisk and say, especially before a certain time period, because they used to just be able to report what was, you know, what they seen.
Right.
So if Farmer Dale's horse was sick, it was probably on the 3rd page.
Right.
We don't know what happened to Gallup, but she's been peeing blue for a week, you know, and I don't know what would cause that, but Tennessee pygmies is obviously, it caught my attention, and I'm just going to give you some things from the newspapers, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but the sheer magnitude of this discovery or this mystery, considering the things we talk about already, it all falls in the same line, because it goes to, what? I would put it in that category when you're filing things away. So
right.
This first mention of them goes all the way back to an article in the Nashville Wigan. That's
an interesting newspaper name, the Wigan.
That's the name of it. WHIGIN. The Nashville Wigan, their July 5th, 1820 edition. So 200 years.
Wow.
Almost 200 exactly. It's just, that's mind blowing, isn't it?
That is.
I mean, that you can really still discover things just that easily from 2 centuries ago.
Yeah.
So here is the article. On the farm of Turner Lane, Esquire, 5 miles southeast of Sparta, on the waters of Caney Fork of Cumberland, and on other farms adjacent, have lately been found small graves sunk into the earth from 1 foot to 18 inches below the surface. They are about 10 inches broad and 18 inches long, having a flag limestone rock at each of the ends and sides, and covered with the same species of rock. In these graves are found skull bones about 3 inches in diameter, nearly sound, the other bones being proportionally small. Between 200 and 300 of these graves have been discovered. In every tomb yet opened was found a small black earthen pot, about 1 pint in capacity, containing a small conch shell, undecayed, of gray color on the exterior and red within, and as transparent as this species of shell is usually found. The pot, when broken, exhibits numerous white specks of round shining particles. What do you think about that so
That's
far?
really strange.
I mean, the shiny particles is really strange.
That's weird in the broken pot. And that odd shell, like exactly the same kind of shell in every single earthen pot.
Yeah.
That's very weird.
Hundreds of them. At Mr. Anderson's, 2.5 miles in a southwesterly direction from the farm of Mr. Lane, were found other skeletons of the same dimensions, in tombs constructed upon the same plan, and of similar materials. One, at least, it is said, was observed to have teeth, and all the bones belonging to the human body. The facts above stated are attested by Mr. Lane of White County, who has seen the skeletons very often, by his son, Jacob A. Lane, Esquire of Sparta, in the same county, and by another son, Alexander Lane, Esquire, a student of law, who all say they can be verified as inhabitants in the vicinity of the farm of Mr. Lane. Mr. Lane, the father, who is the man of observation, gives it as his decided opinion that these are the skeletons of adult persons. He founds his opinion upon the solidity of the bones of the heads, and upon the fact the sutures of the skulls being entirely closed and solid.
Oh, wow. That would indicate adult.
The trees growing where they were found are as of great a size and age as any in the surrounding forest. The small graves at Mr. Lane's are arranged, but at Mr. Anderson's there's a large burying ground full of them without any order as to position. That the bones are human, Mr. Lane thinks there can be no doubt.
Wow.
And that they are not the bones of children, he thinks unquestionable. The rocks which enclose them are thin blue limestone and not of the neighborhood originally. All the limestone in the vicinity is a gray color. Here is a mystery that baffles conjecture and puts all experience at defiance. Very, very strange with this first appearance.
Everything about those burials is really strange. So there's two different areas, two different farms, and on one of them they're very nice and neat and lined up, and on the other one they're just sort of all buried all over the place.
Right.
And the limestone thing's weird. I mean, there's a lot of limestone around here, but it's weird that it's not the regular gray limestone that we have. Like if we already had limestone in this area, I wonder why they brought in special blue.
Why would they get the blue limestone?
I mean, it must have had some sort of cultural significance.
Yeah, I mean, but you would think if they were from here, the cultural significant stones would be here.
Right. But
and
I don't know. It's
also,
really strange.
The earthen pot is one of the strangest things.
And where did they get the shells? Conch shells.
The conch shells, right. Where did they get those?
Because we're not near the coast.
No, we are nowhere near the coast.
Oh.
And even if they brought them from a coast, I mean, that's going to take them a long time, and that's hundreds and hundreds of shells.
Especially with those little tiny legs. I mean, it's going to take a long time to walk.
But for real, it's very, very...
It's very strange.
Very strange. So it continues, okay?
Oh, okay. There's more.
Yeah.
Okay. What
happened is a historian, John Haywood, he wrote extensively about it in his book, Natural and Aboriginal History of Tennessee. And I'm going to read the excerpt between pages 202 and 206.
Okay.
On Saturday, the 29th of July, Mr. Lane went to Captain Simon Doyle's, the place where Mr. Anderson formerly lived, to search there for discoveries. He and those who were with him opened two small graves. The first, 18 inches long, about 12 inches broad. It contained the little bones, pieces of part of one tooth, and other things contained in package. Number 3, the second grave was 2 feet long, 1 inch wide, and 15 inches deep. It contained the bones, teeth, vessel, and shells enclosed in package number 3. This person was laid upon the right side with his head to the south and his face to the east. The body lay north and south, and the thigh bones east and west. The legs were then laid back so as to form an angle with the thighs of about 30 degrees. All this could be clearly ascertained by a cautious and careful examination of the bones, which, although plainly to be seen, yet nevertheless were so decayed that they would crumble at the slightest touch.
Wow, so they were old.
Nor could they possibly lift the bones in any sounder condition than as they were presented to view in the package. The skull which was in the grave last opened could not possibly be raised, for the graves were all full of dirt, as closely bound together as any other ground outside the grave. And the skull is discovered, the probability is that a hole will break into it in the upper part. The concave is perfectly hollow, but the earth cannot be removed from about without crumbling it down as fast as the earth was removed. The concave diameter Mr. Lane measured, it was about 5 inches. The socket of the eye were perceptible. The nettings of the head were visible. The chin, the size and strength of the teeth, and the size and curvature of the ribs were all apparent. The graves lie promiscuously through the farm of Mr. Lane, but at Mr. Anderson's, where Captain Doyle now lives, there is a large and closely connected burying ground. All the description already given, and there are others of the same description 4 miles south of Sparta. Mr. Anderson formerly opened many of them. Captain Doyle, the present owner, has opened several of them, and they both say they believe hundreds might be found there. There is no discernible rising on the surface of the earth by reason of these graves, and they are found by striking an iron tool into the ground so deep that it strikes the covering rock. This rock being then removed, the grave can easily be discovered by the edges and the sides of end rocks. On Tuesday, the 1st of August, 1820, Mr. Lane, in company with his son Jacob A. Lane, Esquire, made further searches in the burying grounds at Captain Doyle's, formerly Mr. Anderson's. They opened another small grave just 22 inches long, made after the usual form, and took out its bones and little trinkets in package number 4. The skeleton lay on its back with its feet drawn up so as to raise its knees about 4 inches above the bottom of the grave. The head was raised above the bottom of the grave also, so as to cause the chin to lie on the breast. They measured the skeleton carefully as it lay in the grave and found it to be from a little below the ankle joints to the top of the skull, 2 feet 10 inches. Taking care to measure the limbs as they meandered and making sufficient allowance for the reclining of the head, it was not above 3 feet high. Its head was to the east, its face to the west. This grave was 4 feet from the one last mentioned. The little round shell found in this grave with 2 little holes, a cross, and 2 circles cut in it is what was not seen in any other grave they had opened. That is to say, the cross and circles were not. 3 vessels were in the grave, but all broken down, so that they were not worth preserving. 5 feet from the grave just opened, they opened another. It was a large constructed after the manner of a coffin, the head 14 inches broad, the elbows 22 inches, and the foot 10 inches. The sides and ends were lined with flag rock, after the manner of the small graves, but not quite so deep. It being only 12 inches, in the grave lay a person 5 feet 5 inches high. They uncovered the bones of the skeleton from head to foot without moving any bone until they had a full view of the entire skeleton. It was not shrouded, for its mouth was extended wide open and was full of teeth. The arms lay along the sides, ribs were broad and flat, and more than double the size of the pygmies.
Wow.
The head was longer, the eyes much wider, the forehead much higher above the eyebrows.
So it sounds like something different.
It sounds like a gray. It's crazy. It's like all the dimensions are crazy. And
it's also 5 feet 5 inches tall.
Right. And the big forehead and all this. It was sent to Nashville. They laid them together and ascertained the exact difference. The collarbone, the arm, thigh, and leg bones of this being appeared strong, beyond what they expected that from the size of human bones. The elbows, knee, and ankle joints were much larger. After they measured it and satisfied themselves of its true position, they raised many of the bones, particularly the head, all the limbs, some few joints of the backbone, some ribs, and the broad flat bones at the bottom of the lower chest. The skull had not a fracture except the top of the right cheekbone, which they struck off. The limbs were all laying in their proper posture, with joint to its joint and the bone to its socket. When they raised the skull, a great number of hairs were found sticking out of it, which seemed to be the hairs of the head of the person interred. They were fine and straight and of a bright silver gray. These bones they lay back in the grave, covered them with the former covering, rocks, and then the earth. No vessels or trinkets were found with this skeleton. And from great dissimilarity to the shapes of their heads, the size and make of the ribs, the great disproportion between the size of the joints and the bones of their limbs, they seem to be looking at 2 very different tribes of people. The head of the pygmies appeared larger upon inspection than they had supposed them to be. And upon finding the bones in package number 1, no person in the neighborhood who had formerly seen the little graves opened could believe that this was the same kind. So I'm actually going to jump ahead here. They're basically just giving the descriptions of the sizes and stuff. But down here it says, but continues Mr. Lane, from the great number of graves of description and size which were found here, and amongst them all, but one of a larger size, just one.
Just the one different one, which is really odd because it doesn't sound like anything that you know about either.
Out of hundreds, it says, but one of a larger size, it seems to be intimated that there hath been a race of people here in ancient times, whose height was from 2 feet to 3 feet. And that they have addicted themselves to strong superstitions. So really crazy.
Yeah.
So they found that one larger person in amongst all these small people.
Right. I wonder, it's interesting. I'd like to know if that larger person was the same time frame as all people.
Well, the problem with this being 1820 is, you know, there's no dating.
I know. And so there's no way to find out.
My problem is, why are we not going back and dating this now?
Yeah, why? I mean, it sounds like they covered them back up.
Yeah, I mean, has somebody not thought about, hey, you know what would be really cool? Let's go date that ancient race of people that we've never heard of before.
And do some studies on them. And it sounds like they're really fragile, but, with lasers and scanning and technology today, they could totally do something.
Had so much there. Just the pots alone, they could have dated it from that.
Yeah.
So there's more.
Oh, there's more. Okay.
Yeah. So the paper of record, the New York Times, ran a piece titled Tennessee Pygmies all the way up in March 24th, 1876.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So some...
Like 56 years later.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy. Okay.
So from the New York Times article, we have this. Prehistoric America must have been exceedingly curious and interesting country. Its forests were filled with mastodons and other large and lively beasts, any of which thought nothing of scratching himself on the sharp pinnacles of a Covenant Gothic church, and so toppling it over and on scores of helpless pew holders in the Mississippi Valley. The industrious mound builders were constantly throwing up gigantic molehills and planting them with earthen pots and copper hatchets, in the vain expectation that the seed thus sown would yield enormous crops of kitchenware and carpenter's tools. In Kentucky, the giants to whom the bones recently discovered in a Kentucky cave are said to have belonged strode loftily along the turnpikes, kicking the Indians and mound builders contemptuously out of the way. And finally, in Tennessee, a race of pygmies was continually holding political meetings and resolving that mastodons, mound builders, and giants should be promptly abolished, and that the size of the inhabitants of this country should be made and kept with commercial necessities. It's crazy, because I'll stop right there. What you're getting out of this New York Times article, a New York Times article, they talk about the mounds in the Mississippi Valley, okay? Now, that's something to this day, Graham Hancock says he attributes to be very much Mayan type.
Right.
And going back to a time before the Great Cataclysm, okay? That's dating it back some 10,500 years.
Right.
So you go from that to him talking about the Kentucky giant bones.
Yeah, like it's nothing. Like, so yeah, you know those giant bones we found in the Kentucky cave.
Because they were finding giant bones all the time. And at the time, in the 1800s, they were finding dinosaur bones for the first time. So this was all new. And it was like, wow, we're finding dinosaur bones. What are these? You know, oh my God.
Yeah, look at these cool bones.
And look, there's big people that went with it. So they actually found giant bones. We know this to be a fact. We know they were taken. Okay. And there's no talk of it now. Every time they've been found through history, there is proof after proof after proof. This is in the New York Times. The New York Times at that time was not going to just print something erroneously. It's just crazy. So I'll continue. It is rather odd that the existence of Tennessee pygmies of prehistoric America was until recently never suspected. The name of the mastodon has long been familiar to every person who is in the latest degree addicted to fossils. You know what? He's trying to be tongue-in-cheek and trying to put a little spin on it or whatever, but I'll continue. His remains, in the shape of a plaster of Paris skeleton with the artist's same stamp on the forehead, are exhibited in every respectable museum. The mound builders have been the subject of scores of learned essays in which the identity with the Aztecs, the Chinese, the Egyptians, the Welsh, and the lost tribes of Israel has been triumphantly shown. And the exact height and probable capacity for whiskey of the Kentucky Giants, we have had careful and presumably accurate statistics. The discovery of the pygmies is, however, so very recent that no one has yet framed any theory whatever to account for their origin and to explain their complete extinction. When the Kentucky Giants were discovered, it was natural that the state pride of the people of Tennessee should be somewhat hurt. The Tennesseans, however, did not sit down and content themselves in reveling the Kentuckians and insinuating doubts as to the alleged character of the gigantic bones. They promptly proceeded to find rival bones of a still greater merit, and their industry has been rewarded by the discovery of a graveyard containing the skeletons of 75,000 pygmies.
Oh my goodness. That's how many they found?
Of the average height of 3 feet.
Oh my gosh.
What are the 3 8-foot tall giants of Kentucky in comparison with so great a cloud of pygmies? If we may judge from price usually paid by circus managers for living giants and dwarfs, a 3-foot dwarf is decidedly more valuable than an 8-foot giant. And it is the same standard governs the price of fossils. The 75,000 Tennessee pygmies are worth full 25,000 times as much as the 3 Kentucky giants. While the Kentuckians can present their giants to 3 eminent scientific men and thus obtain 3 scientific reports certifying the enormous interest and value of fossil giants,
The Tennesseans can supply every scientific man in the country and in Europe with a fossil dwarf, and so secure testimonials without number of unequaled excellence of Tennessee pygmies. At what period these pygmies flourished, what they accomplished, and by what means they were induced to retire simultaneously to their graveyard can only be conjectured. They may have been identical pygmies that, according to Greek legend, waged war with the cranes. If so, the cranes must have proved too powerful for them. This is hardly probable, and then he says some stuff that is very of the time.
Right.
And very racist.
Okay, so we'll just skip that part.
And we're going to skip that. Holy cow, I can't believe that's in there. The bare fact that they once existed at all, we can now safely affirm of them, but doubtless by the time that every home in the country is decorated by a fossil pygmy and every newspaper publishes extracts of the certificates of scientific persons who are overwhelmed with admiration of the vast superiority of Tennessee to those of all rival communities, we shall be in possession of information which will enable us to know at least as much of the pygmies as we now know of the mastodon and the mound builders. It's really nuts.
So here's my question then. If they knew about this and supposedly everyone was going to say, why don't we know about this? Why is there, the giants?
Yeah.
We know nothing about the giants. This newspaper journalist seems to think that now that we have all these fossils and bones, that everyone's going to learn all kinds of things about them and we're all going to know. Yet we don't know.
Yeah, and it gets better.
Okay.
So in the Shippingburg, it's a news thing.
Okay.
They ran a piece October 23rd, 1875. It's after this other one, but for a reason.
Okay.
At Sparta, Tennessee, graves of pygmies have been found with headstones and pottery. The skeleton of one pygmy was 26 latches long, the thigh bone being a little thicker than a man's finger.
Wow.
It is supposed that a race of these little beings existed long before the birth of William Allen of Ohio. An additional discovery that corroborated the finds of 1820 supposed occurrence of Coffee County, Tennessee, reported here on March 29th, 1876 from Woodbury Press. An ancient graveyard of vast proportions has been found in Coffee County. It is similar to those found in White County and other places in Tennessee, but is vastly more extensive and shows that the race of pygmies who once inhabited this country are very numerous. The same peculiarities of position observed in the White County graves are found in these. The writer of the letter says, some considerable excitement and curiosity took place a few days since near Hillsborough, Coffee County, on James Brown's farms. A man was plowing in a field which has been cultivated many years, plowing up a man's skull and other bones. After making further examination, they found that there were about 6 acres in the graveyard.
Wow.
They were buried in a sitting or standing position. Their bones show that they were a dwarf race of people about 3 feet high. It is estimated there were 75,000 to 100,000 buried there.
Wow. So this is different discovery than the first one.
Different.
So they're just found all over.
And this place is, this is all relevant area. But it's a huge marking of land.
Right.
And yeah, there might be hundreds of thousands. Like they found 100,000 on this one. They found thousands on the other.
This is all in Tennessee.
All in Tennessee.
That's crazy.
These are but a few examples, writings of the strange small people. And it's crazy, but I have something even better.
Okay.
So I kept digging because it really bothered me, the question you just raised a while ago.
Right.
Why don't we know about these? And the New York Times was talking about it matter-of-factly. Matter of fact that as well as we knew mastodons, we know giants.
Right.
And the giants, they existed. In fact, they think they might have built some big things and all this stuff. So they all existed. They even attributed the mounds to like Aztec and some stuff like
Right.
stuff that they don't attribute it to now. So we go from there. You're going to love this.
Okay.
This article is from the Reading Times.
Okay.
It's in their December 28th, 1875 issue.
Okay.
Thursday morning, accompanied by Dr. W.J. Sawyer, Mr. Lillard went to Doyle's farm and beside the grave cut of which Haywood obtained a skeleton during his researches, he obtained the bones of a pygmy. One of the graves had a headstone, a limestone rock, a thing unusual. By this particular mark, it is presumed the bones must have been that of a noted person of the race. In the one in which he obtained the fragmentary pieces of what was left of the pygmy, Mr. Lillard found the remains of pottery which show signs of having once been filled with charcoal. This grave had never before been opened. From the manner in which the bones lay, it is supposed the body must have been interred in a sitting position. The measurement of the skeleton was 26 inches in height. The thigh, arm, rib, and in fact the bones are small, the full set of teeth showing at the same time that they must have belonged to an adult. The thigh bones are little larger than a man's forefinger.
Wow.
Think about that for a minute.
That's crazy.
That's the thigh bone.
Yeah.
Mr. Lillard shipped the bones on his arrival here last night to the Smithsonian Institute.
Oh.
He also brought with him a beautifully polished stone pestle used by the Indians perhaps centuries ago in pounding their corn in the mill. It is the best specimen of such implements we have ever seen. Now, that is all it says, but the very fact there was mention from the Smithsonian
Right.
that they brought this specimen, right? They brought the bones.
Right.
We know that many of the giant bones went to the Smithsonian.
Right.
So my question goes back to the question, and the whole reason I'm bringing all of this up. Why the hell are we not taught this in school?
Well, clearly because the Smithsonian doesn't let that information out. I mean, it's well known that they gather things up and then they take them to the Smithsonian and nobody ever sees them again. Like, they have a room that's more secure than the Vatican Library, I think, because nobody knows about it.
So, listen, we talk about a lot of things. And sometimes I'll give you this much. We talk about things that could be considered conspiracy theory, even though the CIA, FBI came up with the term conspiracy theory to throw shade at conspiracy theories.
Right.
But conspiracy theories, nonetheless, they're things that we don't have the hard facts for. We don't have a whole lot of smoking guns. We have conjecture, we have eyewitnesses, we have testimonials, we have all this, but we don't have a lot of smoking guns because it's very well kept secrets. But on this, there's giant bones and there's these pygmy little people that honestly give you the description of what you would think of like a leprechaun. I mean, when your forefinger is your thigh bone, I mean, you're talking little.
Yeah.
And just insanely little, that we have no record of ever being anything like that here.
Right.
There's the indigenous people of being like your Native Americans, which were, normal size. Now, everybody was a little smaller. And that even scares me on the size of the thigh bone being a forefinger, because the forefinger should have been smaller than it is now.
Right.
But the whole thing about it is, and I go back to this because this is astounding. The New York freaking Times writes this. Okay, this is not conspiracy theory. This is hidden mystery fact. So I'll let your minds wander the same way ours is. We're not done with this by any means, shape, or form. We're probably going to tackle this as hard as we can and make this a mission to try to get some of this out, because we think it's ridiculous. And it's just another chapter in the book of all the weird that is out there in front of everybody. I mean, the reason we love covering the weird, we would not do it for as long as we've done it if it wasn't going somewhere. If there wasn't a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
Okay. That pot of gold for us is not monetary. That pot of gold is knowledge, and knowledge for everyone. My biggest concern with this is my largest concern. Why do they hide it? What is the reason? You got to go back at that point when you ask a question and really break it down, strip it down. What would be the reason? Well, the biggest reason for everything in this world is normally money. Okay? So the exchanging of funds from one hand to another to say, maybe we shouldn't say that. Maybe we shouldn't do that. So where would the money come from, especially at that time period? Would the government have a vested interest in changing that? I don't see why.
But I don't see the purpose of not telling us what was here, before us.
So who would have a vested interest in maybe keeping that quiet would be the church.
I mean, that's about the only one you could think of.
In my opinion, not because we can explain it, because you know what? They've not really done a whole lot for the dinosaur bone part.
Right.
Nothing says that everything has to be listed in there and whatever. But, and there's giants in the Bible. The whole thing is, I don't know why. I don't know if there's something else that was found. I don't know if an expert eye looked at it and it was like, my God, this blue limestone came from Cambodia.
Unless there's something about those kind of people like pygmies and giants and stuff that would point to something alien, maybe.
Yeah.
That would be a reason to hide it.
Yeah, like
if scientists studied it, they could possibly find things that they couldn't explain that weren't found on Earth.
Yeah, like I don't know that it is showing different races of aliens.
Right, something like that. That would be the only thing I could think of that
or magical
would cause them to want to hide that so much.
And it gets you thinking. So many people have cited Bigfoot and leprechauns, and here you have bones of two things that could very well be
right,
Bigfoot and a leprechaun.
Exactly.
And it's insanity. The brittle nature of those bones and the fact that the trees were as large as any tree in the forest. So the trees in the forest, I did some research, and there was a logging boom 100 years ago. Okay. And unfortunately, a lot of the old growth was just ravaged.
Right.
And new stuff was planted and all this. But they've, in recent years, been a lot of conservation acts. And people have been cataloging trees, tens of thousands of them in the Appalachians and Smoky Mountains, in the area we're talking about.
Right.
They found trees over 500 years old.
Wow.
And, so they know of one that's like 570 years old, still going strong. If you have an average age like 300 to 500 years of original growth, I mean, that tells us a little bit.
Right.
I mean, that dates it back quite a ways just off the bat.
Right.
But it seems to go back way further than that.
Yeah, just from the age and how brittle the bones are.
I personally think it probably goes back tens of thousands. But, we don't know that yet.
Nor will we ever know.
No, not
because do you think the Smithsonian went back and got all 100,000 skeletons?
Well, I'm not done looking. I'll tell you that much. This is close enough where we can go to the actual local community and go to records, try to find out where the land is, and go out there with a metal rod
and see if we can find
Hey, man, look, if there was that many of them, well, what says that some land that's not being used there doesn't have something in there?
Yeah, there could have been one that was missed.
Be a nice time for some ground penetrating radar.
I'm telling you.
But hey, speaking of penetrating, that's all I got, and it's about time for some paranormal news.
She's the GOAT of paranormal news, traveling the globe to find you the stories you didn't know you needed to hear, and the stories she knows you'll never forget. It's time for Stacey Edwards and Paranormal News.
All right, so let's get to the news. So first, let's go ahead and talk about the new show about the secrets of Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, yeah.
So we watched the first episode.
We did.
And it was interesting.
It was.
It was pretty good. I actually didn't hate it. I thought it was really interesting. You could just tell that the people that are on the show aren't used to having cameras follow them around when they do things.
Right.
And that's a little awkward, but I'm sure they'll get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of drama put in there.
Right, right.
You want to dig? I don't know if you should dig or not. If you dig, everything goes to crazy.
Well, in the spirit of the show having come out and done its first episode, I wanted to talk about this article that Newsweek had done. And they put this out like the day before the show was supposed to air. And it's a story about the 3 craziest UFO, odd creature, and unexplained happenings from Utah's secretive Skinwalker Ranch.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, so it was an article that they did an interview with Fugel, the guy that owns the ranch. And they were just talking about how the new show was coming on and what some of the weird stuff, because it's been very secretive. People weren't really allowed access.
Yeah.
and nobody knew anything about it. So they talk about how there's been cattle mutilation. That is one of the weird things that happens. And in that first episode we saw on the show, I think it alluded to you're going to see some of that.
Right, yeah.
During the show.
Yeah, that's one of the big things there. I mean, I even showed that Linda Moulton Howe was going to be on it, and stuff like that. So, and there's been a lot of cattle mutilation stuff happening in our news recently. So,
yeah, and I think one of the weird things about their cattle mutilations there is it happens during the day.
Yeah, that is strange.
And normally, those things happen overnight. So
we think,
but that's true. We think another crazy thing from Skinwalker Ranch is the UFO sightings.
Yes, very strange.
And of course, former owners claim to have spotted UFOs, even aliens. There's strange lights. The mesa glows and flickers. Unknown creatures walk by. Any number of weird, crazy things just happen there. And people that work there swear that they see these things, that they've changed their minds about paranormal just from being in that area.
It's been going on for years and years and years and years.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the third craziest thing is the unexplained creatures, where it says that, there's claims that people often see unidentified beasts on the property, which could be what they're referring to with the skinwalkers.
Right.
Because, the skinwalker term comes from a Navajo legend that these animal-like creatures are witches who can transform into beasts.
Well, I can attest to that. I know some witches that can turn into beasts.
Well, in that text, skinwalkers are negative. They're not positive things. So
right. Okay, I got you.
And so, in addition to these unexplained figures, there is a legend of a deranged and unkillable wolf.
Yeah.
It's a legend on the ranch. And some people say that the previous owners once saw a giant wolf attacking their cattle. And when the wolf was shot over and over again, it apparently showed no sign of weakness or pain. It just ran off.
Right.
Uninjured. And I think they talk about that story on the show too.
They do, in a very silly way.
They do. And it's very strange. And so for a long time, the Skinwalker Ranch served as a place for research, Pentagon funded research.
Right.
The government didn't own the ranch, but they paid for a lot of research to go on there. So I don't know. It's a really strange place.
Yeah, because Bigelow owned it for a while. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we all know Bigelow Aerospace and all that, which just makes it weird.
If it wasn't weird enough already.
It's already weird.
Yeah. So
it's one of those places I've always likened it to, the Romanian forest and, places like this that just things are crazy.
Right. So I'm actually going to I think we're going to keep watching the show.
Yeah.
See what else happens.
I'm going to keep and see. I've watched worse shows.
This is true. Well, it is really interesting. The stuff that they talk about is really, really fascinating.
I like the fact they're in one place. As long as they're taking it serious and they're doing some research and seeing what they can find, I'm all for it.
Well, what I thought was really interesting with it was you mentioned the digging thing, which, was kind of funny the way they did it on the show. But there is a guy there that they said, you don't dig on the ranch. And he didn't believe it. And he started digging, and then he came down with some really serious illness
that they didn't know what it was.
And nobody ever figured out what it was. It had to do with his brain.
Yeah.
And now he's all PTSD about it. He's I will not ever dig anything on this ranch. I thought that was really strange because clearly there's something.
Would you dig?
I don't know.
I would. Right now.
I probably would.
If you guys still need somebody to dig, I'll do it right now on live cam.
You can't protect yourself from an unknown illness, though.
I don't care. I mean, it's worth it to find out what's down there. Obviously, there's something. I think that it's an underground thing. I said that from the time they turned it on.
Right.
I think that there's definitely something underground.
I think it's alien. There's something alien.
There's definitely something extraterrestrial. I agree, and I think it may be an old school underground base, or maybe a big ship they had to hide, or something like that. That's made that somewhat cursed.
Would explain everything.
It would, man. I mean, there's definitely something there that makes these ships come back, that makes them test the cows. Maybe they're testing the cattle for radiation. I mean,
maybe. We have machines that do that.
Well, I'm just saying, it's not as fun as cutting out an anus.
I suppose not. Not.
I told you before, I mean, that's a delicacy across the universe.
Ugh.
Do you have that skinwalker anus? Oh, Mac. I love the skinwalker anus.
It's only for the choicest customers.
Yes.
That have the most money.
The tall whites.
All right, so let's go on to the next bit of information here. And this is about the supermoon.
Supermoon.
Yes, so on the evening of April 7th and in the early morning of April 8th, you should see the biggest and brightest supermoon of the year.
Ooh.
Now, this one's traditionally known as the pink moon. It's not necessarily pink. That's just what it's called. And the reason it's a supermoon, of course, is because the moon is the closest to the Earth that it's going to get. And it's supposed to be beautiful. And they suggest trying to see it right after the sun sets, right as the moon is rising, because that's when it looks the biggest.
Right.
And the most spectacular.
That's what she said. But yeah, I agree.
So just wanted to throw that out there for people that like to look at the full moon or do their...
Not that there's not enough weird stuff going on.
Right.
Now we're going to have a supermoon. So we'll all be zombies on the 9th. It's a George Romero gone awry.
It's the beginning of a horror movie.
It really is. It's been the beginning of a horror movie for months.
All right, so now that that's all out of the way, let's go on to this next story that is really strange.
Oh, like the others have it, man.
Talk about signs of the apocalypse, like you were talking about in the intro. So this is about a tweet that was done by the CIA.
Yeah.
And it's really strange because I'm just going to read it to you, okay? It says, CIA never shies away from a challenge, even when they seem otherworldly. And it says, hashtag stay home and learn more about CIA's investigations into UFOs.
What?
And then there's a couple pictures here, like old black and white looking UFO pictures.
Stuff.
And there's a link.
Okay.
So if you follow the link, you actually go to the CIA's website.
Okay.
And there's a page there and it says UFOs Fact or Fiction. And on this page, it says that back in 1978, CIA declassified hundreds of documents detailing the agency's investigations into unidentified flying objects in the late 1940s and into the 1950s.
Right.
And so they decided to highlight a few documents within the vast amount of data contained in their FOIA UFO collection.
Wow.
That both skeptics and believers will find interesting. And they put this little line in here I thought was interesting. It says, the truth is out there and it's your time to find out.
What?
Click the links to begin your search. So they're suggesting that since you're at home, you know, you're going to stay home and you don't have anything to do, you may as well, you know, research some UFOs. So they did. There are links here. The first 5 says top 5 CIA documents for believers. And they're titled here. It says flying saucers reported over East German, 1952. Minutes of branch chiefs meeting on UFOs, 1952. Flying saucers reported over Spain and North Africa, 1952. Survey of flying saucer reports in 1952. And flying saucers reported over Belgian Congo uranium mines in 1952.
Okay, so wow, and 1952 is like my favorite year of UFO. I mean, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I don't care if I've read it before. That's cool.
Yeah.
And if the CIA's putting it out, you know they're putting the nuggets out there. And, and they say the truth's out there for you to find. Oh, my God.
So then they listed the top 5 CIA documents for skeptics. One is the Scientific Advisory Panel on Unidentified Flying Objects from 1953, an office memorandum on flying saucers in 1949, memorandum to the CIA Director on Flying Saucers in 1952, a meeting of the OSI Advisory Group on UFOs in 1953, and the memorandum for the record on flying saucers in 1952. When you click the links, it goes directly to that particular document, and you can just look at the scan of it. It's very, very strange that they did that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So just an interesting thing. If you don't follow the CIA on Twitter, I guess
you probably should.
Maybe you should.
I mean,
especially if they're going to start putting out things about UFOs.
I can promise you that they follow you if you listen to this show. It's very strange, very cool, and you know what? I'm going to definitely look at every one of those.
It's definitely an interesting thing to see the historical documents anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and that's such a golden age for it. So very weird, though, that they would do that. And maybe they're gearing up for what the big conspiracy I've been reading is. You know,
what's that?
The thing you talked about years ago, the fake UFO invasion.
Yes, the false flag UFO invasion. I was hoping that wouldn't happen, but it might.
It might.
Yes.
I mean, how would they test and see how people would react to martial law and being locked in and stuff. I don't know how they would test that on a large scale.
I don't know. That seems almost impossible.
It does, don't it? I mean, I can't imagine shutting down everything because that would be, that would
be impossible.
It'd be impossible. You couldn't do it. You absolutely couldn't do it. And of course, if you did try it, you would be able to see the ones that were rambunctious and wouldn't follow rules.
Right.
Huh.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
So let's just move on then.
Since
that's impossible.
Yeah.
So this is a story, speaking of space and UFOs, this is about how a research study about how astronauts could use their own urine to make a moon base from space concrete.
Okay. Wait a second.
Right.
Space concrete is code word for frozen space poo?
No. No. Supposedly, it's research that's based on the premise that getting construction materials to the lunar surface would be very expensive and really a logistical problem, to take a bunch of stuff up there to try and build a moon base.
Yeah.
So some scientists in Norway, Spain, the Netherlands, and Italy, in cooperation with the ESA, conducted several experiments to verify the potential of urine as an additive that can be incorporated into concrete to soften the initial mixture and make it more pliable before it hardens. So the reason they say that you can use human urine is because there's an ingredient in there called urea. And it's something that organisms make. It's a waste material, and especially it's a major organic compound of human urine. When your body breaks down proteins, then your liver turns the amino acids into ammonia, and then they have to turn that into
makes it softer
urea, so it can go to the kidneys and you can get rid of it, without it poisoning you. So because there's so much urea in the urine, apparently they can use that and mix it in with different materials to make concrete, where they can make like a moon base out of that concrete without having to bring a bunch of other stuff up there. I mean, it's an interesting idea.
It is, yeah. So, I mean, are they going to try to find astronauts with incontinence problems? And it's like,
I have no idea.
I never thought that I would be picked, sir. I just never thought it would be me.
Well, why not, Johnson? You seem fit.
Yes, sir. Are you sure you read my medical records?
I read them, Johnson. It said you could be a serial killer.
Oh, yeah. Well, I really couldn't be because I've never hurt pets. I mean, I know I fall under the other criteria, but that's a joke for anybody who listened to Spaced Out Radio. Or you could listen to John and Stacey Edwards every Saturday night.
That's right. You can.
Midnight Eastern.
9 p.m. Pacific.
Live.
Exactly. So just a really interesting study. They do say that they haven't investigated how they would extract the urea from the urine, but they're still assessing whether that would even really be necessary, because if they left the urine as it was, there would be water and other stuff that could possibly help the creation of the concrete.
Oh my God. I really thought that they were going to take their poo and stack it, build it, let it freeze in space and have poo buildings. And you should have seen what was in my head, because I'm just here. I thought I was way ahead of the curve, because my mom told me that when I was a kid, she would leave me alone and come and find that I had built a little house, like a little log cabin.
Out of your poo?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
That's really strange, because you don't usually like to touch gross things.
Well, it's my poo. It's not that gross,
I suppose. I don't know. Ugh.
No, I hate gross things, and I'm the cleanest person on the planet. Water conservation, schmaltermation. I have to be clean daily, but
Yes.
That's just what she said, and I can only imagine that some nuggets fell on the floor. I didn't know what they were, and I was like,
Ew.
oh, well, they stick.
Oh, they stick together.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's make a little log cabin.
I'm sure they look like logs.
It probably looked more like a stone cabin,
Oh, wow.
but at least that was regular.
That is a little nugget of information that we didn't get on the other show, was it?
You didn't ask.
I did not ask that question. Surprisingly.
I don't remember. What's the strangest substance you ever built a cabin with?
All right, so let's move on
Let's.
to our next story. All right, this is a story from Argentina.
Ah, my favorite place.
Yes, and this is about something strange and miraculous that appeared in the sky.
Oh, no.
So it probably is just some sort of phenomena, but it really, really looks like a vision of the Virgin Mary, which is what a lot of people claimed that it was.
Oh my God.
And so I'm going to show you a picture here.
Holy cow.
Now, isn't that very strange? It says it was taken around 5 p.m. on a Wednesday in the city of San Carlos. And
it looks like the Virgin
sort
Kathy.
of like...
Kathy has a little bit more, reddish hair.
Right.
I'm so sorry. I've got to go over here to this altar for a minute and
ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
So supposedly there was sort of like, it's kind of like a rainbow that started to form, but then it didn't really make a rainbow shape. It just sort of created this Virgin Mary-ish type silhouette. Like there's not a face. It doesn't look like a person, but the shape of it is very much like the Virgin
Mary-ish be inducted this year into the dictionary?
Yes.
See, I don't know. She's kind of Virgin Mary-ish.
Well, because it looks like she has, the head thing on and the...
Okay, I'm just going to tell you. This is crazy. I mean, this is either Zach Wilde or the Virgin Mary. I mean, it definitely has the angelic look.
Right.
It has the head. It has the hair. It has the arms out, like "Come to me, child."
Right.
It has the gown.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about it this happened. It sort of coincided right with the whole
Looks like Greg Allman.
COVID-19, being quarantined.
Right.
And so people were taking it like a sign, like a good sign, a positive sign, like maybe they were being protected or they were being looked over.
Oh, wait. Hold on. One of my friends from Argentina is calling. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Hello. Sorry, guys. I got to take this. Oh, okay. It's my friend here, Bill. Mm-hmm. I've got
Bill from Argentina.
I got Juan Cruz, Doc Nico, Bill.
Right.
Hold on a second. He's got audio of what the Virgin Mary said.
Oh, okay.
So hold on a second. Let me play this here. Stay the f*** inside. You're gonna spread the virus. So stay the f*** inside. Okay, Bill, thanks.
Wow, the Virgin Mary's very...
poignant?
Yeah, something like that. Well, it's good advice, though.
It really is.
Good advice. So I thought it was funny in the end of this article, there was a man that they interviewed, and his name was Ricardo Busto.
I was hoping it was Montalban.
They asked Ricardo Busto what his opinion was, and he
Corinthian
claims...
leather's my opinion.
He claims that
Genuine Corinthian leather.
That his cousin doesn't see the Virgin Mary. His cousin sees a penis. I don't know. So everyone took something different from the miracle, I dare say.
I've been waiting for this for so long. So long. You don't understand. I felt like I was in another person's body. Oh, and I'm gonna be.
All right. So
and I could say that because of the high number of friends I have that would have seen a penis.
Yes.
Because, I'm so glad that everybody's always like, I wonder why these visions don't happen in America. Why do we not see Our Lady of Fatima? Why do we not have these holy visions?
Right.
And the reason it would be like, this just in, Scoopers here with the 6 o'clock news. It was said that somewhere over Iowa this afternoon around 4:32 p.m., there was the sighting of a large, giant, flaccid object just shivering about and sort of flopping back and forth in the wind. A lot of people took this as a meaning and went straight to the nearest flop house. I mean, it would just be...
Right.
The craziest thing. Of course, Kentucky would see a bigger one.
Of course.
The Kentucky would be like, I don't know. It was just huge and black and I don't know. It's a storm cloud, Henry.
All right. So maybe we should move on now.
Thunderhead.
All right. So let's talk about a creepy story.
I think we just did.
From India.
It didn't start out creepy, but
It didn't. It went straight to creepy, though, very quickly. Yeah. All right, so this is a story from India, and it's about a mysterious creature that knocks on doors and windows at night, and there's panic among the residents in the village.
Have we checked all the local, bad people? I mean...
I think they have. So this is a village called Parampalavu.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Where the little Parumpulans,
that's where they live.
Make marshmallows
village.
And... What the hell?
Where am I?
So suppose...
A minute ago, I was in Kansas. Well, welcome to Parampula.
So anyway, many of the people have seen this mysterious creature moving around in the region, and some think that it's a man, but a lot of people don't think that's what it is. And it says that the creature appears on rooftops and in front yards of houses after 9 p.m. However, the locals say that it's a dark shape which is not clearly visible due to the darkness, and it usually makes noise by knocking on the doors and the windows of houses. And so people have been waiting for the last 4 days to see what this creature is. But it's said that it's exceptionally quick because it jumps over walls and moves from one house to another in a flash.
Sounds like my crackhead cousin Marvin.
So a few nights ago, a group of locals followed it, but the creature got onto the terrace of a house and then ran away after sliding down the trunk of a mango tree nearby. It sounds very cartoonish.
The creature was incredible pain if anyone's ever seen a mango tree.
So despite all the panic, there's not been any incident of theft or attack by the creature. Basically, they see it. It jumps from house to house. It knocks on the doors and windows, and that's it.
Has anybody opened the door?
People have gone outside to follow it. They claim that the locals are evading the lockdown orders because they're trying to catch this unknown creature. And so people have been filing complaints against the people that are out looking for it and against this creature that they're saying is a man, saying that he's causing panic. But a lot of the locals say it can't be a man just because they've seen the way it moves.
Wow.
So it's very strange. That's all there is on this. That's
Wow.
the whole article.
Wow.
I guess they're trying to investigate it, but I don't know. It's so strange.
So they're in the lockdown, which everybody's under lockdown.
Right.
During the lockdown, this thing's appearing on rooftops and then it jumps fences and...
Yeah, and slides down mango trees, apparently.
Wow.
So very
there's
strange.
always cryptid sightings and crazy things. Maybe it's trying to figure out where the hell everybody's at.
Right.
It's look, I normally attack someone at this time and nobody's out on the streets. I don't know what's going on. I survive on your blood.
He's knocking on the doors. He's like, excuse me, is there anybody in there?
Hello. It's just like...
It's dinner time.
Innocent little monster out here. I'm totally not going to eat you.
All right, so let's go on to some discoveries.
Yeah.
So this one's sort of a follow-up, actually. Do you remember a while ago, it's been quite a while, over a year, where we started talking about all these shipwrecks that started appearing on different beaches, because of the weather and the storms.
Yeah, a lot of them in Hatteras and stuff.
I'm pretty sure we talked about this one. This is one that was from York, Maine. And it's a mysterious Maine shipwreck that actually appears every 20 years.
That's so
on
weird.
York Beach.
Yeah.
And it appeared one time in 1958. It appeared again in 1978, and then in 2007 and 2018. And every time it appears, they always try to study it as much as they can. So this article is about how they have finally been able to do the dendrochronology on some of the wood. And
it shouldn't have took that long to cut a piece of wood off that thing. And count the rings.
No, it shouldn't have. But I think that they just recently decided to do that research.
Oh, okay.
When it was uncovered in 1958, they believe that a lot of people just took a bunch of it as souvenirs. They just completely demolished some of it. But since they've done this study, they realized that the shipwreck is from before the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
Yes. And I love the name of the place where they sent the tree ring dating samples, the dendrochronology. It's called Cornell University's Tree Ring Laboratory.
Oh, wow.
That's the official name. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
And it says...
Not to be confused with the 3-ring laboratory where the firemen have to go.
So the sampled timbers matched a New England tree ring index indicating a felling date of 1753.
Oh, wow.
So they're assuming that the boat was built shortly thereafter. And then once they figured that out, they were able to look through the records, the archives about, different ships and different shipwrecks. And they said that coincidentally, there was a boat built in 1754 in Massachusetts that kind of fits the description of what this ship is. And it was called the Defiance. And historical records say that the Defiance was sailing from Salem, Massachusetts to Portland, Maine with a cargo of like flour, pork, and English goods.
Witches.
When a fierce storm forced the crew to cut their anchor cables and it pushed the vessel onto York Beach. So the vessel was lost, but the crew survived. So they're pretty sure that this is that ship.
So they just never rescued it.
Right. I guess they didn't really have any way to. So they're really excited about it. They want to do some more archaeological investigations to confirm that that's what it is, but they're almost positive that that is the explanation for this particular shipwreck, which they'll see again, when it gets uncovered in a few years.
It's crazy there wasn't any kind of log or some kind of denotion of what it is. Like, it looks like you could have got in the ship somewhere.
Well, it's basically just the skeleton of the ship. Yeah, there's not a lot of stuff there. And like I said, they didn't do any of the
hubcaps.
Yeah, they didn't do any of the study on it until recently. And
because they were watching Oak Island. They're like, why don't we do that dendrochronology stuff
the tree ring.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really interesting. And I love that they took the time to try and figure out, where it came from and what it was.
It took them long enough. They're like, oh yeah, there's a ship again.
Hey, maybe we should study that sometime.
Oh yeah, well, Tom Brady's gone. Let's take a look at the ship this time.
We had nothing else to do. All right, so let's go on to our next discovery.
Let's do it.
And this is about some paintings that were discovered inside the coffin of a 3,000-year-old Egyptian mummy.
Oh my goodness.
After she was lifted out of it for the first time in more than a century.
Okay.
So they've had this mummy
obviously
for a very long time. Apparently, work has been required to ensure her condition did not deteriorate further before her remains are displayed in the new City Hall Museum in Perth, Scotland.
Oh.
Now, this museum's not going to open until 2022, but they wanted to go ahead and start some restoration work on this mummy because clearly it's 3,000 years old. It's very delicate.
Right.
So the conservators made the discovery because they needed to lift her out of the coffin to kind of see and establish what sort of work needed to be done and where they wanted to start. And when they lifted her out of the coffin, they saw paintings of an Egyptian goddess on both the internal and external bases of the coffin where the mummy was lifted out. Now, the mummy's name is Take-Her-Heb. And
Take her head.
Take-Her-Heb with a B on the end, yeah. And she's believed to be a priestess or a princess from Thebes. So nobody moved this mummy, clearly because of the delicate nature of it, for over 100 years. And they had no idea that those paintings were in there. And so they were pleasantly surprised to see them appear. And now the one that was underneath the mummy is more well preserved than the other one.
Right.
But they're both images of an Egyptian goddess. It's really pretty. There's all kinds of pictures on there. And it said that further research is going to be carried out on the paintings to find out more about the history of the mummy. But they believe that the mummy dates to somewhere between 760 and 525 BC.
Wow,
so
man.
It's very old.
So what are the paintings again?
They're representations of the Egyptian goddess Amentet. She's known as the Lady of the West or She of the West, just one of the Egyptian goddesses. And I guess they don't really know a lot about this mummy. They just believe that she's a princess or a priestess. So they're hoping that maybe that painting can shed some more light on her or her importance or her life or something. Because, Egyptians don't do anything willy-nilly.
Right.
It all means something.
I mean, it's crazy they didn't know that was there.
I know.
And that it was found just now. You know what I mean?
Right. It just makes you think about all the things in museums that aren't studied on a regular basis.
Right.
And things that haven't been studied since we've gotten the new technology. See, a long time ago, that even if they had found that, there wouldn't have been a way to really get accurate readings on it or scan it or anything like that.
Right.
It's amazing. I love stuff like that.
And it's just like we were talking about with the dating of the pygmies and the dating of the giants. I mean, there's so many things, as you just said, in museums that we probably need to go back to what we already have.
Right.
I mean,
right.
it's
re-examine.
Yeah, exactly. It's much like data we already have on, a lot of times they find these new planets and all this stuff, and it was data we had years ago that they just now have the chance to go through.
Exactly. And where they take the old data and run it through the new AI and the new system. And it's like that story we had the last time about the sword that was misplaced with the medieval things,
Right, exactly.
And if it had been further studied and somebody had gone over it, then that could have been caught. So
right, the one that Roscoe dated, the part-time cousin.
That's right. So very interesting discovery and definitely something for museums to think about.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to this next. This is such an odd story. This is a story from the UK, and it's about how cell towers are being torched after this conspiracy theory has gone around linking 5G to the coronavirus pandemic.
Oh my God.
And the problem with this is this conspiracy theory started somewhere on the internet, claiming that 5G radiation is exacerbating the spread, making it more lethal, just making it worse. And what's made the conspiracy theory worse is that celebrities have been talking about it online and tweeting about it and giving it credibility, I guess, or credence. I don't know. In this particular article, it says that Woody Harrelson recently posted a report about the negative effects of 5G and its supposed role in the coronavirus pandemic.
Jeez.
And he, on his Instagram, he has more than 2 million followers on his Instagram.
Oh my God.
And he did say that he hasn't fully vetted it, but he found it very interesting.
Oh.
And of course, even if he says he hasn't vetted it, he put it up there. People are going to listen to that. And then, of course, there was singer MIA also tweeted about it over fears of the 5G. And it's caused people in the UK to decide to go out and burn the towers down. That was their response.
I mean,
this.
It's the fear, it's fear mongering.
It is.
There's so much right now. People are so scared and it's so uncertain, the uncertain times. And I've seen the conspiracy and I've avoided the conspiracy. Listen, I don't like 5G as much as anybody else because the stuff that I have read on it, it's just not been tested enough. And the effects that it has on people has not been tested enough. And weirdly enough, the places they've put these up, there's been things happen if they were near somebody's bedroom or whatever. And you have no say about it going up. You can't do anything as a community about it because it's, progress.
Right.
And they're really pushing to get it everywhere.
They really are.
A little bit strange. It is a little bit strange. And it's so powerful. There's a lot of fear about brain waves. And I mean, we're made of energy.
Right. So what is it going to do to our systems?
Exactly. And there's a lot of that we don't know because what we don't see in that spectrum is the fact that these waves are going through our bodies all the time.
Right.
Just as easy as they go through walls. I mean, look, if they go through a cement, brick, steel wall and go to your phone, they're going through your body.
Right.
So
what? And the problem is we're not going to know because you're not going to know for however long it takes for it to be.
Look,
bad.
All the anxiety problems that we have today, that was not something you see as buzzwords 100 years ago. Now, I know it existed. People had freaking anxiety.
Right.
But we have so many inherent problems now. And it just seems like, even with the drugs they've created, I shy away from that conspiracy, but I am living proof of them not understanding it, putting you on a drug, that drug sedating you or changing your creativity or you accepting what they've diagnosed in 5 minutes that you have, when they're not with you for 5 days. And the problem is, I came off a medicine that was hardcore not long ago. And I've been a better person since I came off this medicine that was supposedly making me a better person.
Right.
I started taking it when I needed to, and this is just full disclosure, when I was trying to get off of alcohol, I quit cold turkey, and it's been over a decade ago now, and right at a decade ago. Wow, didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
But it was early 2010. I quit drinking completely, and at the same time, though, because I was trying to change myself, I went to a doctor and told them, hey, every now and then I take a pisser and, beat up half a county. And they were like, well, here you go. And they gave me this stuff that pretty much made me a zombie when I took it. And I was on it for a very long time, almost 10 years. And I decided, you know what? I'm tired of feeling that way. I don't think I need it. I really don't. And when I came off of it, it was like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm a pleasant person in the mornings, and I remember the mornings.
Right.
And stuff like that. So the only reason I tell that story is because we get these diagnoses, and we have loved ones that are on 30 medications. And then you hear stories sometimes of people that just get off everything and they feel better than they ever felt, and they're alive again. It's the same thing with the 5G stuff. There's just so much out there that is changing us. And it does bother me as well. But I really think that what we're dealing with right now, as hard as it is to understand, is an unfortunate situation of a virus that we just simply didn't have the immunity for. And we need to stick together. We need to keep our senses, and we need to try to stay inside. I don't think that the government's out to kill us right now. I think they're really wanting to save us. And it's a simple thing I tell my kids sometimes. When they get worried about something like this, I say, look, as long as the government doesn't want to mow their yard, okay, as long as the overlords don't want to have to lay brick and mortar, they're not going to kill us. Because why would you kill the people that are going to make your utopia?
Exactly.
And I know that's making it oversimplified, but when you think of it in those terms, I mean, if you don't have anybody to rule over, what's the point?
Exactly. I agree. So regardless of what you hear about a conspiracy theory about 5G, please don't go burn down any cell towers. In fact, I thought it was funny in this article because the one singer, MIA, that was tweeting about her fears over it, later on posted a picture of one of the towers on fire and was like, people in England are setting fire to it. She's like, they should just turn it off until this is over. There's a slight voice of reason there. Why don't you just turn it off? Do you have to burn it down, really?
Well,
Overreaction much? I don't know.
Yeah, we do.
All right. So let's move on to a Bigfoot sighting.
Okay.
So this is a story that came from a social media post by the Turkey Mountain Urban Wilderness Area. So it's a spacious piece of undeveloped land in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that has become particularly popular outdoor escape for residents, like for hiking and things like that. So they posted that several people visiting the destination over the weekend claim to have spotted what they believe may have been a Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking about several calls, not just one person.
Right.
And not only did people call them, some people sent them messages and some people sent them pictures.
Oh, man.
So if you go and look at this post, there's about 7 pictures. 6 of them are like this weird thing in the distance. You know how Bigfoot pictures are.
Oh, yeah.
And one is a picture of some people standing next to a weird footprint. So the Turkey Mountain Urban Wilderness Area, they promised to investigate the matter and just went on to remind people to, stay 6 feet away because social distancing. So I don't know what they did, if they really went out to investigate it or what happened, but it's really weird that many people saw something.
It is. That's they obviously saw something they thought was
right. And it wasn't like, there was one picture, the first picture, it was just in the distance, and I noticed one of the comments underneath it, someone was like, that's just a mossy tree stump, but the rest of the pictures were in different locations of the same type thing. So whatever it was moving. I'm not going to say that it wasn't somebody in an outfit or
sneaky ass mossy tree stumps.
I know. But it was really, they said they received dozens of calls and messages. And so that's quite a lot you would expect that maybe for a UFO sighting, not for a Bigfoot sighting.
No, maybe one family or something. It's like the world's worst Bigfoot.
Right,
right. You know that he's been called in right now to the council. He's somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Had to go see the grand elders. They're like,
they mean business when they call you out to the Pacific Northwest.
Excuse me, I was supposed to come here and yes, are you Harry? I am Harry Henderson. Yes, Harry. We've noticed that you've been reckless, Harry. You've had all kinds of people spotting you. It's just, it's ridiculous. That many people.
Right.
It's got to be something.
It has to be something. Now, when I looked at the pictures, whatever it was didn't seem that tall, really. But it was very weird, and I couldn't tell what it was. So, I don't know. It was very strange.
Some transient. It's like...
It could be like...
I used to be a clown.
It could be like a juvenile.
All I had left was the shoes. I was running from these people because they were yelling, and I haven't had a bath or a shower or a haircut in years. Sorry about the footprints. Flop, 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 flop.
All right, so let's move on. Let's do a couple of our favorite little eyewitness sightings.
Eyewitness news.
Yes, from our favorite website, Phantoms and Monsters.
Yes.
And a couple of these that were on there recently, so interesting. And since we were talking about Bigfoot and cryptids and beasts, I thought that would be a good segue right into this. So this was a very recent eyewitness account from March 28th of this year.
Right. That's about as recent as it gets.
So the eyewitness, along with his mother and a friend of his, were at a place called Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area. It's in western Kentucky.
Yeah, right. Of course it is.
So it's a recreation area in western Kentucky. It runs all the way down to Tennessee. It's called Land Between the Lakes, and it's situated between the Kentucky and between two lakes. I was going to tell you which ones, okay. The Kentucky and the Barclay Lakes, consisting of more than 300 miles of shoreline and 170,000 acres of forest and over 200 miles of walking trails.
Wow. You sound like a commercial.
Well, I wanted to find out what this area was like. I wanted to do a little research on it. And so this particular eyewitness account said that they were on one of the nearby trails. They entered the woods, but before they reached the wooded area, they noticed a long, wide print in the ground. And it wasn't deep, but there was a distinct outline in which the witness was able to place both of the palms of his hands.
Oh, man.
Now, he didn't have his phone with him, so he wasn't able to take any pictures or call anybody, but he was able to get the attention of a ranger who was kind of in the immediate area. And he had him come over and he showed him the prints. And the ranger looked at the print and he said he acted kind of puzzled by it. And so the witness asked him if he had ever seen any similar prints like that before. And the ranger didn't answer and just kind of shrugged his shoulders. So, they didn't really get anything out of that ranger. That's when he noticed
the ranger was 45 foot tall.
With hair sticking out of his uniform.
And the only thing he said was, "Can I borrow $3.50?"
So the witness and his mother and his friend, they continued on the trail, and after 15 minutes or so, they noticed a creature on the trail about 70 yards ahead of him. And it says that the trail was on the rise, so whatever it was kind of backlit by the horizon. And at first, he was sure that it was a large coyote.
Right.
But as they watched, the creature stood up on its back legs while looking in their direction. And so the witness described the beast as an upright canine type animal that stood approximately 7 feet, and that the head was similar to that of a coyote but much larger. And the arms and legs were canine-like but very muscular. And the chest was broad and its color was darker than a coyote. So they watched it for about 15, 20 seconds, something like that. And the beast turned around and ran in the opposite direction at great speed.
Wow.
So immediately the witness's mother and friend started running back up the trail. And the witness hesitated a bit because I guess he thought maybe I should go, that way, but realized that because the beast was so fast that it could easily double back and catch them. So he just, started running with his mother and his friend to get off the trail.
Smart move.
Yes. So the witness did say that he was going to try and go back and find the print and photograph it, but there was no photograph. So I don't know if he ever found it or if he ever had a chance to go back or not.
Is it stranger that they seen a giant dog man or that they had no phone?
Probably that they saw the giant dog man. it's funny because there is a cryptid in that area, and it's a legend, and it's called the Beast of the Land Between the Lakes.
Oh.
And when I found out that there was actually a cryptid legend there,
Yeah.
of course I had to look that up. That's why I got all this information on this area. So in this particular Land Between the Lakes area, that land, there's over 228 small family cemeteries, mostly forgotten about and lost, kind of dotted out throughout the acres of forest. And it was once used as homes to early Kentucky settlers. And so some of the earliest graves date back to the early 1700s.
Wow.
So it's graves of all types of people, white settlers, veterans from every war, slaves, immigrants, people that worked at the iron furnaces, just everything you could find would be there. And so there's also numerous Native American graves scattered throughout there, much older than even the earliest settler graves. So the land is very possibly haunted anyway.
Yeah.
And so there's always been talk and legends of the local people that live around there of hauntings and Indian curses and mysterious lights over the gravestones at night and witches that live deep in the woods. But there's always been several tales of a wolf-like creature that stood on two legs that would come out of the thickets and attack their cattle and livestock day or night. It's said that the creature was taller than an average man by well over a foot, nearly 7 feet tall, with thick long hair covering its body and a stench that matched that of some of like the freshly opened graves. And so the wolf man left tracks like a barefoot man, but where the toes should have been instead were like paw prints. And so the head was huge and wolf-like in appearance with an extra long snout and uncanny long sharp incisors. And supposedly his eyes are red, and it had long arms with huge hands and long spindly fingers. And at night you could hear it howl. So this legend has been around at least 100 years.
Wow.
And it was passed along through time from family to family and updated as new sightings occurred and things like that. And so what these people claim they saw is exactly what this legend is.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
very strange. And I thought it was pretty cool that the article I looked up about this beast between the lakes, there's a couple of different theories of like where the beast supposedly came from. And there was a legend that the creature used to be a Native American man that had the ability to shapeshift. And he was a powerful shaman that had been outcast from his tribe because he used magic for evil. And so they tracked the shaman down and killed him while he was in his wolf state. And so in his dying breath, he cursed them and vowed to return from the dead to haunt the forest and seek revenge on their families. So that's one theory about the legend.
If I ever kill an evil magician or witch or something, I'm going to gag them before I do it. Because there's so many times that like their dying breath is like, curse this town. It's going to be like, okay, well, set in the fire. Sock, please. Wait, what are you doing? I got to say, I'm sorry, what was that? Live long and prosper. Okay. She said live long and prosper. Yay.
So another one of the theories about where the legend, where the beast came from, was that it was a settler that came over from Europe back in the early 1800s that had a disease that made him turn into a madman at night. And the disease was passed along to his children who never went to school, and they all stayed hidden away from any of the population.
It's called alcohol.
And that the family had died off because nobody had ever seen or heard from them, but they claim that could be where this beast comes from. I like the first story better.
I do too.
But it's a real legend, and there was a real sighting, so I thought that was really cool, interesting story. All right, so I'm going to give you one more
All right.
eyewitness account off of this Phantoms and Monsters website, and this one is so interesting, and this happened back in 2014, and it's an invisible cloaking entity in Juarez, Mexico Park. But I don't think that's exactly accurate. And let me tell you the story and you tell me what you think. So apparently a UFO investigator was called in to investigate this case of a videotape that was sent to him. And it was the evening of November 10th, 2014, and a man named Armando Martinez was at his son's baseball game. And him and his friend were in the stands and they were filming with a cell phone. And it was just a regular evening. They were just filming the game. Nothing out of the ordinary occurred. Nobody noticed anything. Nobody saw anything. So later, after they got home, they went back to look at the video that they had recorded. and they were shocked to see a strange figure standing on the field.
Oh.
And strangely, none of them had seen it during the game, but it was clearly visible in the recording. And he also claims that the kids on the field, you could tell, were aware that something was around. Like there was a kid standing on first or second base, and you could see that he kept looking around directly at where this thing was standing.
Oh my God.
But, clearly there wasn't anything there. And he just, I think on 2 occasions, he turned directly towards it and then turned away, almost like he could sort of feel like somebody was watching him. And so the whole thing was invisible to the human eye, and that all of the children kind of felt a little weird.
Yeah.
So what does that sound like to you? I mean, to me, it sounds like there's some sort of spirit there.
No, I mean, not in this alien or ghost
I guess
or whatever. I don't know.
It could be.
I mean, yeah, it
could be.
Could be anything.
It's just so weird.
It's very strange.
And the fact they have a video of it
yeah.
is really odd. So
what does the figure look like in the video?
It looks like a little person. I mean, it's not detailed formed, but it's about the same height as the kids.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's like a head and, maybe either a dress or a body.
Well, I'd like to find out if there was like some little kid that passed away. And
you can see this video. This particular eyewitness account, I think they got a lot of this out of a documentary that came out last year called Beyond the Spectrum, Humanoids. And I believe that they show the video and talk about it in that documentary. So it's a good way to be able to look at it and see, the whole thing.
it doesn't sound like a cryptid. It sounds...
No. Clearly not.
Weird, man.
It is very weird. All right, so I have a couple more stories here just to finish off the show.
Right.
And this first one is, I just love this one. This is from Central Java.
Sounds like a coffee shop.
It does. And apparently there's some men that dress as Pokong to spook the village into self-isolation.
Pokong?
Yes. Now, Pokong...
Sounds like a very poor giant monkey.
So a Pokong is basically the Indonesian zombie.
Oh.
Wrapped from head to toe with white cloth, as is customary in their burial rites.
Hard to find
with
that right
only
now.
their faces uncovered. And it says with their lack of limb mobility, they hop around from place to place. So these 2 men who happen to guard this neighborhood at night, what they've done is, because it's a self-imposed isolation in this neighborhood, they've blocked it all off, so there's only one entrance, and it's guarded day and night. And whoever guards it checks the people coming in and out to make sure they're not sick or make sure they're out for a reason, or just to not let anybody in. And the guys that are on duty at night decided that they were going to dress as Pokong to kind of help keep people, where they need to be.
Right, until somebody gets a shotgun. I mean, good Lord.
It says that they check people who pass the gate, including spraying disinfectants on the people.
But they ain't taking no chances, are they?
No, they're not. They are making sure that,
If more neighborhoods did that, we would be safe.
Well, they do say that it's symbolic that the Pokongs remind us of death, so that anyone that's too stubborn to participate in the self-imposed isolation can just remind themselves that they may become a Pokong.
You never know.
You never know. So going above and beyond.
That is above and beyond.
Above and beyond. Okay, last story. You're going to love this one. So this is about a man who's facing charges after a high-speed chase on the I-5 with Pitbull in the driver's seat.
Okay.
So this is a Washington State man who was arrested following a high-speed chase on Interstate 5 in which the suspect's pit bull may or may not have been driving the vehicle during part of the incident.
Oh, my God.
So they didn't publicly identify the man. He was 51 years old. He's from Lakewood, but he's facing several charges, including DUI, reckless driving, hit and run, and felony eluding. And it said that the pursuit began in South King County. And according to the troopers, the man was driving a 1996 Buick when he allegedly struck 2 vehicles at the Boeing Access exit in Seattle shortly before 1 p.m. This is middle of the day.
Oh, my God.
So then the driver fled north on the I-5 and was spotted by a Department of Transportation worker shortly after 1 p.m. And so the officials said the vehicle was traveling over 100 miles per hour when the troopers began pursuing it. The driver left the freeway and drove onto a nearby Centennial Trail. And then the pursuit finally ended at Cackman Road and Grandview Trail. And the troopers said the man told them that he was teaching his dog how to drive and that the pit bull was found in the driver's seat while the man was steering the driving wheel.
Oh my God.
So it says it's not clear if the pit bull is going to be charged in the incident at all.
Wow.
So, I do not know how he managed to do a car chase at 100 miles an hour with the pit bull in the seat, or when he stopped, if he just switched seats really quickly.
God, I hope he's taught the pit bull how to drive. I mean,
there's a picture. I think there's a picture there. I vaguely remember seeing a picture of a very sad looking pit bull in the car. Oh, this is so funny.
Oh.
I feel like he was driving, and then when he stopped, he was like, I'll just tell him it was the dog. I won't get in trouble because I wasn't driving.
That's beer sense right there.
That is drunk logic.
Yes.
All day long. So
unless he really is teaching the dog how to drive.
I mean, maybe that would definitely solve his problem of, having a designated driver all the time.
Dude, that's amazing. That's just, it's amazing that they even let it get that far.
I know.
Oh my God. Listen, great news. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the best place to find out about more pit bulls is ParanormalSideshow.com. That's your address to find out everything pit bull drivers. Mm-hmm. Facebook.com/ParanormalSideshow. There's a lot of pit bull drivers right there at home, stuck right now. On Instagram, Hot Pit Bull Dam. It's John and Stacey Edwards. If you want to be a patron, we're changing those levels up. We're going to give you some more good stuff and some more old good stuff and all this stuff. It's patreon.com/Paranormal Sideshow. Mm-hmm. And also youtube.com/Paranormal Sideshow. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff there. So if you're not already subscribed, go there, subscribe, hit the little bell, because you're going to want to know when we got something to tell. And let me tell you, from my beautiful wife, Stacey, my name's John. So long from the Sideshow.
Good night.